Hey, good morning. How we doing? All right, so all y'all in back, I'm gonna speak Texas for a minute. Come fill in these seats. We need a mosh pit. We're gonna do the wave. So I'm Doug Farr, I'm the incoming chair of the CNU board, and I have the distinct pleasure to introduce our next President and CEO, Lynn Richards. So come on down, and can we dim the lights? It's showtime. So, Patty's here, so the party can start. So, what's that? Patty, we need you. Trust me, we do. So I want to first thank Dhiru Tadani, the in-house illustrator for the CNU, for most of the graphics you're about to see. And I have a question. Do I advance the slides, or is that you? Me? Oh. Okay, thanks. So, where we are now, the CNU is in the best position it's been, I believe, in a generation. There's an alignment of the stars that is incredible. If you can't tell, I'm pretty darn excited myself, coming in and being, whoops, what did I do? Whoop. There we go. What's the coming together? What are the things that are happening? Some big stuff. First of all, the founder's vision has been achieved. So you may recognize some of these faces, and there are a lot of first-timers here, so I'm going to spend a minute and just name their names. Peter, from upper left, Peter Calthorpe, Liz Moule, Andres Duani, Stefanos Palizoidis, Dan Solomon, and Liz Plater-Zyberg, the 6 founders of the CNU who came together in 1991 or so, and 93 to write a charter or so, and set forth this idea that they wanted to offer an alternative to sprawl. And at the time, the CNU was a lone voice on this topic, and we have succeeded beyond our wildest dreams. 22 years in, the CNU and our agenda is the agenda of the country, of all the organizations that matter, of ULI, of APA, of other affiliates, USGBC, CEOs for City, Railvolution, it's all our stuff. We've changed the conversation nationally. Success. Thank you. Secondly, the CNU has spawned a number of other organizations, and this may be a little mysterious to newcomers. What are all these different groups and how do they work? And I think Dhiru's illustration captures this perfectly, of the sort of the mother duck and all the sort of ducklets behind there. You can read the list of names, but one of the things that is true about the CNU and has been true for more than 20 years is that we are an incubator of ideas, an incubator of organizations, an incubator for leaders, an incubator for authors. And this. If you haven't seen this is a poster, thanks to DPZ, I believe it's from DPZ, showing the books on new urbanism that have been written over the years, largely, in fact, almost exclusively by members of the CNU. So if a movement can at all claim credit for the highest claim you can make is that you wrote the book on it, we wrote the book on it. We wrote it over and over. We wrote it compellingly. We critiqued one another. We improved and built on the work of the people before us. And this continues with more vibrancy today. Bob Stern's book weighs more than any other, but that's not going to last very long. I think Dhiru's got a 50-pounder in the hopper. Yes, you will need a shopping cart to carry this book around. But the point of it is, CNU is the thought leader in the world of development. If you go to the other conferences, when you see the standing room only, check the front of the stage and you'll more often than not see a CNU speaker there. We really absolutely are the thought leaders. So, how did we get here? We got here through some leadership over the years. We've had three prior executive director CEO, the first of whom is Peter Katz. And is Peter here? You may be embarrassed to see this drawing that you didn't know was coming. So Peter, to this day, is a trusted part of the brain trust of the CNU. He has gone on to excellence in the public and private sectors, but he remains influential in the field and actually wrote the first book on the CNU, the one called The New Urbanism. Thank you, Peter, for your leadership over the years. Our second executive director was Shelley Patisha, 1997 to 2002. Shelley has also gone on to great things and very much carrying forward the mission of the CNU in other organizations. She ran the Office of Sustainable Communities at HUD, She now runs the urban division of NRDC with a staff of 50 people working on the CNU's mission and agenda around the country. So she continues going forward, carrying forward that legacy. And last but not least, John Norquist, who doesn't also know this is coming, but is sitting over there, our CEO and president from 2002 to 2014. Half the years we have been an organization, John has been our leader. And we owe him a lot of thanks. There we go. So the first great thing that's happened is the CNU founder's vision has been achieved, and that we are ready for our next challenge. The second great confluence is that the state of the Congress is strong. And we owe this to John, who honestly carried the organization financially and the staff through a really hard recession, and we have a great balance sheet. We got money in the checkbook. I also want to thank Bill Tyne and George Grasser, if they're here somewhere, and the host committee from Buffalo for throwing an amazing Congress and also putting more money in the kitty. We thank you for that. This is a great, great Congress. And we have John's covered his face. Yeah, he did not know this was coming. Thank you, Dhiru. But we have, like the leaders before, Peter and Shelley, John is going to continue working, he's promised us, on the things that he's passionate about, teaching, writing, and we believe highway teardowns. Check this out. If your town has a freeway without a future, beware. Norquist is going to come and break it over his knee. Thank you, John. So we have the embarrassment of riches in that we don't lose John. The movement continues with his leadership on this topic and others going forward. But guess what? We do a handoff. It's time for a passing of the torch from John to Lynn. And this is the thing that I am absolutely, passionately most excited about. And Lynn doesn't know some of this is coming. Lynn Richards is a perfect choice for CEO of CNU. So I have had 2 days with Lynn in Chicago, and she is always a part of a team. So this is Lynn and her first team, her son Oliver. And first thing that this picture tells you is that Lynn is tireless, but Oliver is not, right? So he was good for the first 12 hours of a Friday, but it was the 13th hour at the bar where his mother had taken him that he had to kind of check out and do a little kind of nappy, right? So right there on the table. But Lynn is absolutely tireless. She is whip smart. She is like a sports car or a very lightweight bicycle, whatever the analogy we use these days, but absolutely can go forward 0 to 60 in no time at all, and is a good listener. And the few things I wanted to say before I turn it over to embarrass my friend Lynn Richards is that the CNU is absolutely at the best point I can imagine it being. We have an embarrassment of riches, and not the least of which that we will celebrate now and today and in the years to come is our selection of Lynn as CEO. She will meet each of you individually and talk to you for an hour. So that's going to happen. It'll take a year or two. She's been doing it the last few days, so if she looks a little bleary-eyed, there's some performance behind that. But I really am excited. She has the best Rolodex. Everyone knows her and has worked with her and has very good things to say. And she's our passionate advocate and is learning so darn fast. And I'm really proud of her. Anyway, without further ado, I introduce my friend and our next CEO and President, Lynn Richards. Thank you all.
Wow, that's taken my breath away. It's rendered me a little speechless, which many of you know is somewhat unusual. Do I just click this to go to mine? Because turnaround is fair play. Thank you, Doug, for that incredibly warm introduction. But mostly, thank you to all of you. I have been, you've taken my breath away, honestly, with the warmth, the welcome, how caring everybody has been, the graciousness. I can't thank John Norquist enough for how he has helped with this transition. Many folks have said, so when do you take over? I actually started doing some work for CNU on April 7th. Yes, my last day at EPA was April 4th. I started at CNU on April 7th. And John and the CNU staff has been nothing other than incredibly gracious, incredibly welcoming, and just amazing. So thank you for all of that. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. My good friend and colleague Lee Sobel has been joking with me for the last 3 months, who is Lynn Richards? So he's really been encouraging me to talk a little bit about where I came from. And so I'm going to tell you a couple of stories. Bear with me. I started working in the Soviet Union in 1988, and I lived there for about 7 years. And for the first part of my career, I was traveling around the 15 republics. Yes, it was still the Soviet Union then, giving out computers and modems. It was from an AID program called Seeds of Democracy. And so just to give you a sense of the flavor, one particular day I was on an old Soviet bus in the middle of the steppe, going from Almaty, Kazakhstan down to Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan. And the bus broke down. No surprise there. We were in the middle of nowhere, middle of the steppe. I had to go meet with one of the environmental leaders in Bishkek, who later went on to be a member of the Green Party in Parliament. Crap, what am I going to do? I'm in the middle of nowhere. I grabbed my backpack, left the bus, started walking down, and I hitchhiked the rest of the way. It wasn't until the tanks rolled into Pushkin Square in August of 1991 that I realized the power of what I was doing. I had set up at that juncture about 15 different email nodes, and from that point forward, the Iron Curtain could never come down. Communication was flowing back and forth. I tell you this story to underscore how accustomed I am to working in tough situations where there is no playbook, only a deep belief in our mission. And so that's the first lesson that I've learned, that we need clearly defined goals and outcomes, and the rest will just figure itself out. I'm also an avid cyclist. I love to bike. I started biking 5 miles to school, and no, it wasn't uphill both ways, when I was in 5th grade. And I did my first long-distance bike trip this summer between 9th and 10th grade. I biked 250 miles from Rochester, New York to Lake Placid. And yeah, I did it by myself. Now, most of the time, my riding is confined to errands or, some long-distance rides like Ragbri, the great bike ride across Iowa. I've done that several times. A bad year for me is about 1,500 miles. A good year is closer to 3,000 miles. Thank you, Victor Dover, for helping me get CNU jersey. Biking for me is an escape, pedaling in that perfect pace line with the sun shining, the landscape whizzing by. I'm transported. I'm transported by whatever it is that's bugging me at the moment. You know that feeling you get, right, when you're doing something you love? Everything just seems to flow, right? You feel grateful, empowered, bold, all at the same time. Yeah, that's what biking is for me. It's so important to what it is. I wanted you all to know about that. But let me ask you, have you ever heard the sound of a car hitting a person? The screech of tires, the unmistakable thud, and the cracking of bones? I have. I'm a 3-time survivor of car-bike collisions. They're not accidents, they're collisions. And I know firsthand that our streets are not safe for everyone. Creating safe and welcoming streets is not rhetoric for me. It's a way of life. And the streets are so important to what we do. They represent the very skeleton of any good development. So that's the second lesson, that safe and welcoming streets matter. Ellen said on Friday, or Wednesday, I can't remember what day it is, sorry, that I worked for the EPA for the last 14 years. This publication of mine, by the way, is in that awesome bookshelf that Doug listed. One of the projects that I'm most proud of is looking at the nexus between development and stormwater. I had done a bunch of research that essentially determined that the very act of development, that high-density development, mixed-use TOD, in and of itself was a stormwater management practice. And so I was up in Burlington in 2006. It was October. I remember it being really cold. And a bunch of state stormwater coordinators came up to me and said, okay, all right, we're there. Now what? How do you put this in a permit? Like, really? You're there? How do we put it into a permit? So I pulled together a group of several offices across EPA, the Office of Water, our legal office, our enforcement office, and we developed some permit language. And then West Virginia raised its hand, and we handed it over to West Virginia. And they did a little sausage making, but they proposed it almost in its entirety. And what this permit does is that it gives a reduction to stormwater requirements if you're doing redevelopment, high-density development, vertical development, or mixed-use TOD. That's just unheard of, that you can actually get regulatory relief from doing good development. Anyway, the collaboration didn't stop there, because then I called up Smart Growth America after West Virginia proposed this rule, and I was like, I'm with the federal government, right? I couldn't beat the bushes, but SGA could. And they did. They beat the bushes. They called up all of you working in West Virginia. They called up the local government officials. They called up the developers. They called up everybody, and everybody wrote in. And guess what? That permit still exists in West Virginia today. Tennessee followed suit, and 9 other states followed suit. That's my third lesson. We can't solve complex issues alone. Partners matter. So I'm not going to bore you with any more stories. My background, like yours, reflects the person that I am today and the professional that I am today. And it has also helped me define where I think we are as a movement. I believe that we are at a tipping point. We've heard that a lot. The very first plenary speaker talked about it today. Across the country, people are demanding more great places. Demographics are changing to support this trend. Local governments are responding. But more needs to be done, and we all know that. We all know that local land development regulations and formula fundings still support the single-family detached homes. We know that the complete but not great and beautiful streets are being built. And we know that the architecture and the design of many new developments fail to inspire. So as your new president and CEO, there are 3 things I want to accomplish. I want to make it easier to build and design places people love, places that inspire and inspire us, right? Places that capture the imagination, places where community is created, where visitors want to return and the residents never want to leave. Shouldn't that be what we're about? Getting more stuff built. Second, I want us to increase the focus on design quality. We need to build places that we can still be proud of in 50 or 100 years. We need to reclaim our brand of design excellence. Finally, I want to expand our tent. There are thousands of placemakers working all across the United States. Some of them are represented here, but most are not. We need to work together to create safer, cleaner, healthier, more sustainable communities. We need to stand side by side, focus on our areas of agreement. We don't have to agree on everything, but there's going to be a lot of overlap in areas in which we agree, and achieve our common goals. We can't win the war on sprawl by working alone. And we can do this. As Doug said, we have already accomplished so much. We have influenced national, state, and local regulations. We have changed codes, ordinances, and national standards. We have built thousands of places where people have thrived, places where people have loved. We have changed the conversation from why would we build walkable places to why wouldn't we? But we can't do this alone. I can't do this alone. I need help. I need help from all of you and all of the people who aren't in this room. So I want to call right now. I want to call on our government officials in this room. I want to call on our developers, our bankers, and our real estate professionals. I want to call on our architects and our urban designers. I want to call on the members of Next Gen. I want to call on the supporters of lean urbanism. I want to call on the health advocates. I want to call on the country's planners. I want to call on the pedestrian and the bike advocates. I want to call on anyone who has ever wanted to create beautiful and great places. So together we can build walkable and livable places. Together we can tip the movement where local officials, developers, planners, everyone across the world no longer asks why, but why not? So right now, I want everybody to stand. Get out of your seats and stand, and join me now, and stand with me. Raise your hand and cheer for the future of CNU, to the movement and to its principles. Let's do it. Thank you.